Welcome back, everyone, to the Devil's Advocate podcast covering all things Manchester United. Of course, we're going to be looking ahead today to Man United's next fixture, which is on Saturday against Brighton and Hove Albion. To do that, I'm joined by Phil Marsh on the Manchester United side. And on the Brighton side, we're joined by Addy from Albion Roar and Adam from Together BHA. How are you guys getting on?
Yeah, good, thanks. It's been a good start to the season for us.
At least that makes some of us then, I suppose. Because it's been...
Some of us.
Yeah, we're happy on the bottom row here.
Yeah, you're absolutely... We are not in a good place, are we, Phil? At all.
Yeah, not really so good for us. Obviously, with all the sort of circus that's following us at the minute. Every week there seems to be something new. And yeah, I don't think obviously our performances on the pitch have been up to much really in the first 4 games. So a lot to improve on all round, I think.
Well, that and I think a lot of the problem, though, guys, isn't it? Because there seems to be so much background noise. It's deafening all around. I mean, we just had the Jadon Sancho thing come out today. That's gone further. You've had the Anthony thing. You've had. It's just been, it's almost as if you haven't been able to concentrate about what's been going on the pitch, and even that's not been brilliant.
It's definitely not, and I don't think the horrific pre-season. I don't know who was in charge organising that pre-season, but we went to about 7 different countries, played really poor opposition, and no first team players got really any run-outs against anyone half decent. Whereas you look around, you look at teams like Tottenham and stuff like that, played against Premier League opposition. They were playing the majority of their games in one country. I don't know, but what was Brighton's pre-season like? Was it?
We went to America.
Yeah, you were in my neck of the woods over here. Yeah.
You know more about it than me, Adam. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, with just a little tour of the East Coast, predominantly over here in the US. I'm based just outside of New York, so they were over here. But we didn't do. You did an extra bit of a trip for your guys, but
we went to Oz. Played a game in Scotland, and then obviously played in Manchester. But I think we played a game in Norway and a game in Spain, and then we played 3 in America.
Yeah.
Wasn't there 2 teams rotating as well? So you didn't actually have. There was one team that had Harry Maguire and someone else in it, and then another team that had everyone else in it.
Yeah, so it caused a bit of debate in amongst United fans online, because basically the team that went to Hampden, I think it was Hampden, or maybe Murrayfield actually, to play the game. They charged basically full price and played the kids and Harry Maguire. And then the team that played at Old Trafford the next day, tickets were really cheap. And then it was the full first team. So yeah, he basically split the squad in half the whole pre-season, which, yeah, I just think it's horrendous. I would much rather the teams just in one area for this. You're going to play 4 or 5 games. You'll get used to each other, and players will drop in and out, because that's what it's going to be like during the season.
Pre-seasons have completely. Sorry, pre-seasons have completely changed now. This is the first time we've had a worldwide tour for us, with us going to the States for the first time. I mean, obviously yourselves have been doing that for years, and we understand, there's revenue streams, there's sponsors to keep happy, and you can understand the certain reasons for that. But I mean, the whole idea of a pre-season is to actually get your players back into shape, get the new players gelled in, and when you're traveling miles, you might get to know someone a little bit better if you sat next to them on the plane for 24 hours, but it's not going to be. You're not bonding on the pitch. You're not building up relationships on the pitch, and that's what the pre-season is meant to be. It's meant to be hard work. It's not meant to be traveling around the world, keeping XYZ sponsor happy.
Yeah, and that's sort of what it's become over the last couple of years. I think certainly for Man United, it's obviously went last year, played in Bangkok. Even that was a better pre-season because we played good teams. We played Liverpool and things like that, and I know it was probably slightly further away, but it was more congregated in one sort of area, and then it made sense when we were flying over to Bangkok. We then went and finished the tour in sort of Australia and New Zealand. It made sense, whereas this one just seemed like, how many games can we cram in different countries to appeal to different markets and get the feel-good factor around? But I don't think it's worked at all in terms of on-the-field stuff.
No, I'm not overly keen on it. I mean, Adam, I know that Stateside Seagulls really enjoyed it, and we've been growing our fan base massively over there, which is terrific. And obviously for yourself to actually go and see the boys in action for the first time is great. But and you know, we've come a long way from like playing Worthing and Crawley, but it's but you know, we laugh. You may laugh at that, but I mean, those games were massively important to you know, when you're playing these games in and around your home county, and there's, you know, it's a massive revenue stream for the home club, so who don't necessarily get big crowds, and you know, it might be it's a money spinner, and it sets that, you know, a decent friendly against us for someone like Burgess Hill or for Worthing or Free Bridges or whatever, you know, that could set them up for the season. So I think it's probably, you know, it's good to have play against better opposition. It's good to have that, but it's also, you know, you need to have those games against the local teams as well. And you know, we still have those, but it's our 23s that do it now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's maybe what Ten Hag was sort of going for, was splitting the squad in half. But I just don't think it worked. And then, as you touched on, Andy, the off the field stuff. Callum, I will come to you first of all. Obviously, I don't want to talk in terms of what's going on in terms of how it's going to affect the player or whoever, the accusations or anything like that. I want to talk purely football side of things. But obviously, Addy touched on it just before you were in here. Anthony situation looks like he won't be a part of the squad now for the foreseeable. Sancho today's been exiled to train on his own again for the second time in 12 months. This time in much worse circumstances because Ten Hag wants an apology. Where do Man United go with this right wing situation now? Is it going to be Bruno on the right? Are we going to see Pellistri? Is Ahmad going to get a chance? What happens? Because we've gone from 3 years ago needing a right winger to in the last 2 years we've bought two for a combined £150 million, and now both of these right wingers are now no longer available. It does show maybe there needs to be a bit more work done in terms of evaluating a signing before Man United jump in. Not just on their footballing side, but maybe on their background as well. What do you think happens going forward?
I mean, firstly, there needs to be background checks and due diligence across the recruitment, you know, and it's been needed for years and years. The fact that we signed Jadon Sancho, and I was desperate for Sancho to come in. I'm sure a lot of us were. But the fact that, you know, there's been talk of having attitude problems with him for a long time, and obviously it's now no different with him being at United. Obviously, with the stuff with Anthony, I don't really want to comment too much on that, but ultimately, it just shows that it always stems back to the owners, because with the correct people in charge, things like this doesn't happen. So that the recruitment side of things has had a major issue probably since Alex Ferguson and David Gill left the club. In terms of the right wing situation, we needed one for years and years, and yeah, you're right. We bought two, thought we'd solved the issue. Then we end up playing Sancho on the left constantly, and then by a left-footed right winger who can't use a right foot at all. It's just really strange. I mean, I know we've got Pellistri as well. Whether Ten Hag fancies him, I think it's still in the out to question. Maybe I personally quite like him, but I think the jury's still out slightly. Personally, I think if we're going to end up playing either Bruno or Mount on the right, I'd rather play Mount. I think Bruno's at his best when he's in the middle. I think everyone, I'd like to hope, would agree with that. But ultimately, it looks like Anthony's going to be out for the foreseeable, because I don't know how long this issue is going to go on for. And until, from the situation looking outward, from the out inwards, it looks like Sancho doesn't want to swallow his pride and say sorry to his manager. And considering there was reports that he's having to tell him that, I don't know how true they are, but considering that he's having to be told an hour earlier to get to training, when in reality training is actually 10 o'clock and he's still turning up late, when you're on £350,000, I don't earn anywhere near that a year. And if I was 5 minutes late for work, I think my manager would go mental. So I think it just shows a lack of professionalism and a lack of sort of research behind the personality of these players. And I think maybe some of these players seem to think that maybe they've made it too quickly when they come to United, when in reality they don't think that elsewhere. So I just think it shows really bad planning from United and really bad on the players' part as well. I suppose Ten Hag didn't have to air it out in public, but it happens, I guess. And it probably just shown that he was a bit sick of him now. He's given him so much help and credit, especially last year with his mental health issues, and he kind of wrapped his arm around him. Maybe he thought, do you know what, I've done that enough. Maybe it's time to try a different way, and that clearly hasn't worked either. So at this point, I'm starting to think maybe Sancho's career is coming to an end at United before it's actually even started to take off.
No, that's fair. Yeah, Addy.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, I mean, I think most supporters of other clubs can see exactly what the problem is, and I mean, we're sitting from a position of smugness, I guess, because our recruitment is pretty damn good, and we have a set plan of how things should and could work. But I mean, what you've needed for the longest time is just basically a director of football to set a plan, say, right, this is what we're going to need, this is how long it's going to take, this is how many windows we need, and you have an idea, and you get square pegs for square holes, and you don't try and just force issue. You do your due diligence on the players.
Really hard to say that, isn't it?
It's like, you know, we've got a no dickheads policy at the Albion, and it's like, and if someone turns up and is too big for their boots, then the players will police it themselves. They don't need the manager or disciplinary panel to come in. We'll sort it out ourselves. And
although I agree with that, the problem is, I think United. Everyone's been calling out for United to have directors of football and all that. We've actually got one now. I think there's a constant at Man United at the moment that no matter what we do, no matter who we hire, no matter who's at the top, there's always going to be a glaring issue that has been constant for the last 18 years, and that's the Glazer family. Man United will never, ever be able to win anything of significance again whilst they are there, because ultimately, where directors of football and managers will come in, try set out plans, and you'll get heads of recruitment trying to set out plans, a bit like Brighton have, because, you know, the fact that you have to compare to Brighton, they're so shrewd and brilliantly run, that the fact that a club the size of Man United is being compared to that is really, no disrespect to Brighton, but, you know, that in terms of the size of the clubs, it shouldn't be comparable. But the fact that Brighton are, you know, the fact that Brighton are
like Brighton, yeah, thanks. we get it a lot, and like, we do find it very disrespectful, actually, because it's like, you know, we're not here to make up the numbers, you know.
I'm not saying that. It's just obviously
we know
Man United is very different.
Right,
yeah, I know, but we see it
right, and Man
we've seen it for years. And Adam, I'll ask you this question: every time like we beat anyone of note, we like search the Twitter feed for like hashtag teams like Brighton, and it's like everyone, all these Charlie big potato clubs saying, "Oh, we should be beating teams like Brighton. We should be squishing them with our feet. They're like ants. We're the mighty Man United." Well, I'm sorry, guys. We're a football club. We're in the Premier League. We're not here just to make up the numbers.
I think it's been fantastic, to be fair. Like, genuinely really good.
You've touched on an interesting part, though. It's the money, right? I don't mean to cut you off, but like a lot of it comes down in part to the money. And you can tie this to the Glazers if you want. You can just tie this to the wealth of Manchester United, because I think if we talk about the disparity between the two clubs, you can talk about wealth. That's the biggest thing, right? Man United are an incredibly wealthy football club. But yeah, when you go and give 20-year-olds like 350,000 a week and expect, you know, perfect behavior, it doesn't always work like that, especially when you've got this revolving door of managers that come in. So there's not a consistent authority figure that's there within the club. You go to Man City, you know, everything stops with Pep. Pep is going to be there. He's been there for ages. You step out of line, you're gone. With Man United, you're like, well, I can mouth off against this manager because it's probably going to be another one in 18 months. It doesn't really matter. I know the people at the top aren't bothered either. I know my teammates aren't too bothered. And you kind of get this weird situation. But, you know, I think what Adi was saying about, we hear this sort of teams like Brighton thing. And I know you didn't mean any disrespect by it. It's interesting. We even got a podcast. There's a Brighton fan podcast called Teams Like Brighton for that very reason. But we see that with transfers as well. And we've been so frustrated with Chelsea fans over the last year plus, where there's this expectation that we should just release all our players so they can have the privilege of going to Stamford Bridge. We're starting to get sniffs of that with Man U and Evan Ferguson a little bit. It's like, well, come on. He loves Man United. Let him go,
He's a United fan, so at least there's something there. But the Caicedo thing at the start of the summer, there was Chelsea fans being like, you'll get to go for 75 million. I was like,
yeah, it's like with people, they were accusing us of having him as imprisoning him. It's like, mate, we just gave him a new contract.
Yeah, he signed a new contract. I assumed it was for that exact reason, but I say it every time. I said it in the summer. I said it in our group chat as well. I was like, The minute you sound that João Pedro, I was like, okay, and how long till De Zerbi turns him into like a 90, 100 million pound striker? And it's just, I think the point that Callum is definitely getting to is like Man United have so much, and as you said, Adam, Man United have so much wealth and so many funds, and they generate so much money that if they just had competence, they don't even need Brighton level recruitment. They just need competence. They just need a little bit each, just to like you said, do the due diligence on the signings, but just that little bit of competence that Brighton not only showed competence, but just elite level, finding these diamonds in a rough. And Man United will never sign the players like Karu Matoma. Like they're not going to. They might show up on Man United's radar, but they're not showing up top of the list. The way that Brighton can find these players, and it's obviously I know they do a lot of work with their affiliated clubs. Is there 5 or 6 affiliated clubs?
Yeah, Saint-Gilloise in Belgium is the big one that Tony Bloom sort of co-owns.
That's the only one. But even then he's had to relinquish control of that because of
in Europe
rules in terms of.
So they were, weren't they? They played, because they played Leverkusen. They played last year.
Yeah, something like that. And they're playing again this year, so he had to downsize his investment in them.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I would like to point out that at the time we signed Caicedo, that Man United were also looking at him at that particular moment in time. It just you didn't know who to speak to. You just didn't know who. Because of the way that South American football works, you can have 6 or 7 different agents representing the same player. Yeah. It's just finding the right one to speak to, and we found the right one to speak to, and we got him for $2.5 million, I think it was.
Yeah, and peanuts.
Yeah, and it was, and he's, he hasn't had the greatest start at Chelsea.
Who has?
Well,
I'm sure.
But the guy is just a monster. He's incredible, and he will go. I mean, I was hoping that he wouldn't go to a club in this country. Actually, I think I was hoping he'd do what Jude Bellingham did and actually go to someone like Madrid, because if players like that will get ruined in this country, and with the expectation and the red tops, etc. It's just ridiculous. But Moises will go. He'll settle, and he will show the form that he showed here, and he's shown for Ecuador, and he will go on to be one of the very, very best players in the world. Yeah. Particularly, I still think he is the best defensive midfielder on the planet at the moment in that role. I mean, now that Kante's kind of disappeared off and with his Zimmer frame, but it's. It's fine. Those, it's no secret. Those players are out there. It's not just. I mean, we often joke that. Teams like Man United and Chelsea, they shop in Harrods, and we shop in the bargain aisle in Lidl's. But it's we've moved up a level. I think we're moving up towards Tesco's, possibly, maybe
Tesco, Asda, somewhere like that.
Not quite Marks and Spencer's yet, or maybe Sainsbury's. But we're working on it. But it's finding those players and finding. And as you mentioned earlier, it's finding the players with the right attitude, and because we can provide them with that pathway, which they might not necessarily get. It's like Evan had a trial with Liverpool; we could have easily gone there, but how would he have just disappeared, like a lot of players do that end up there, or come here and have a clear pathway and be playing in the first team? It's we're seeing it with other players, like Carew. We signed him for £2.5 million, spent a season with Union Saint-Gilloise, and he's come back and been absolutely incredible.
That's fair. That's fair. I do want to quickly touch back on the right-hand side issue that Man United have got, Phil. Do you think the way that Sancho has responded and the way that this sort of has been drummed up by, whether it's be sources within the club or out with the club, as a lack of respect sort of thing because of what's happened in the past? Do you think this maybe leans back onto the Ronaldo situation over a year ago, that players think they can get away with this sort of thing? And obviously being an ex-player and things like that, would this sort of thing of flown when you were playing? Would this sort of reaction would it have happened under
No, definitely not. I was just thinking then, obviously, as you guys were chatting, I think obviously when I was back at the club, it was completely different. I think football now is it's a different generation. I think the players, because they're so used to getting everything that they want, the money's gone through the roof. They can't accept being told no, I think, and this has been proven with some of the incidents that have obviously come to light with certain players over the last month and years. So I think, obviously, just touching back to when I was at the club, you had your characters like Roy Keane and players like that who wouldn't allow anything that was going on in and around the club to get out there in the media. Obviously, the media has gone massive now. There wasn't probably as much of that about back when I was there, but everything used to just get dealt with in-house. The players respected each other enough to sort of, take a bollocking now and again if they stepped out of line. And that just was the way it was. As I said, I think, when you look at the current way that the game is, Man United's team on paper is probably far superior in terms of quality to Brighton. However, Brighton have got a clear identity. I think all the players buy into what the manager's asking them to do. They go out with a clear game plan. They execute it. They seem like they want to, die for each other on the pitch. They all seem organised and know exactly what they're going to do every single week. Where at the moment at our club, we've got players with, individual agendas. We've got big time Charlies. We've got people who don't want to fight for the shirt, who, sulk if they don't play in a certain position, if they don't, play every week. We've got players who, limp off injured when they get half a tackle. And I think that is the biggest difference for me in terms of where we are at as a club compared to, other clubs. And as I say, Brighton have done absolutely outstanding this year. I think, watching them play every single week as a Brighton fan, you must be going excited, knowing exactly what you're going to get. Whereas for us at this moment in time, we're sort of, we don't know what to expect from one week to the next. We don't know who's going to be playing from one week to the next. Granted, we've had a lot of injuries this season, which has affected, team selections and, building up them relationships which you need to be successful. But, you should have a squad with the depth and the quality and the passion and desire that the people who are coming in and, it doesn't look like anyone's being replaced. Whereas at the minute, for us, when we are missing players, it's showing up massively.
Yeah. Do you think the hunger's gone?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do, Ed. Yeah, I think in terms of, I wouldn't say like the manager's lost the dressing room or that there's certain players not putting their effort in. I just feel as though, I think because of everything that's going on at the club at the minute, obviously, the Glazers, the takeover, all these big incidents that don't need to be out in the public, it's detrimental, and you can see that it's definitely having an effect on the team. Obviously, Greg touched on the pre-season as well. That clearly hasn't helped. We started the season at home against Wolves. I was expecting us to fly out the traps, and Wolves were by far the better team. They was first to every ball. We looked very leggy, and it's carried on into the next few games. And obviously, we've been lucky, really, I think, in my opinion, to be on 6 points. We could be sat here probably on 2 because of the Wolves game, the penalty incident, and obviously we was 2-0 down against Forest in 5 minutes. So it's worrying for me at the minute.
Do those characters still exist in the? You're on about those characters in the changing room that, like, when you were playing Phil. Do you think there are those in the Man United dressing room just now, or do you think?
Yeah, there probably is, and I think there's probably a couple of players that spring to mind. Your Brunos who seem to me like they have that passion and they want to try and help other players and younger players. I just think the difference is nowadays, because of, obviously, as I said, it's a generational thing. I think younger players that are coming in, because of the amount of money that they're on, because of all the other things that come with it, the sponsorships and all these other avenues that you can get distracted by, you can quite easily sort of take your eye off the ball. And I think back when I was at the club, the manager was massive on football being the main priority. Yes, you can do other things. You can have your other social enjoyments and obviously enjoy yourself, but the football is the priority. And for me, it just seems at this moment in time we've got a group of players where there's quite a few that have got other things on the mind, and they don't seem to me to be fully focused and fully putting everything into becoming as good as they can be and fulfilling the potential, and getting themselves fully right for a Saturday. And being, what I mean by that is, when I was at the club, I'd watch the first team train, and I was lucky enough to train with them a few times. And after training, they'd be in the gym, they'd be doing every single thing that they could to get the edge on, the teams that they was coming up against, or to keep that shirt, because every single player was fighting for a shirt. Whereas I think at this moment in time, for me, I can tell just by watching some of the performances on a Saturday, or whenever we're playing, the training levels and the competition isn't there, because some people are sort of coasting along and they're in a comfort zone, and they're going to be playing, and there's injuries and people are out. Oh, I don't need to work hard because I'm guaranteed to play, and all these things that sort of slip in have a effect over a period of time. And I think we're seeing that on the pitch at the moment.
That's
Phil. Do you think then that you've got too many individuals there and not a team? They're not fighting.
I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to say, because I think when we have played well, we have looked really good, and you can say for periods last season we played some really good football, and again it's when things are going well, everything's fine and dandy. But I think when the chips are down, that's when you really see what people are made of, and how people can react and deal with adversity. And I think we've got too many in this club at the moment that haven't really got the fight, or haven't got the when you need someone to turn to, or you need someone to pull something out of the fight. Like, obviously when I was back there, I say your Roy Keanes, your Paul Scholes, your Ferdinands, all these players, when they lost a game, they couldn't wait for another game, because they wanted to put it right, and they had that sort of bit between their teeth to prove people wrong, and they was all ready to go to war to win that match. Whereas I think nowadays it doesn't hurt sort of players enough when they lose a game of football. It's just, all right, we've got another game next week, or all right, we've got the FA Cup next week, and it doesn't really seem to sort of sit right with me that people can throw a little "oh, I'm sorry" on Twitter or whatever, and think that that's acceptable. You're talking on the pitch.
Their agents will go for "oh, sorry."
Yeah. And I think, as I said, that's where the game's changed. It's a generational thing. A lot of the stuff now is because of social media, because of all the other things that you've got to sort of appear to be sort of acting a certain way. Whereas I think a lot of them, it's not genuine, and it's not coming from the heart when they are saying some of the stuff. So it's a difficult one to say, mate. As I say, I'd hope that people, and the players would be like that. But for me, looking at it from the outside, I just don't see it with some.
No, that's fair enough. Adam, from the sort of outsider's point of view, do you think how Ten Hag dealt with it is any differently to how De Zerbi would have dealt with the situation?
Well, it's an interesting question, because we've only had a couple of examples of De Zerbi kind of putting his foot down, and that was Trossard was probably the most standout, Eddie, I think, right? Where basically he's like, I want to go. I'm going to throw a bit of a strop. And you've got Robert Sanchez is probably the only other one where there's been a kind of a bit of a weird exit. And De Zerbi was like, all right, well, you're just not going to play, and we're going to find you an exit for Trossard. And he got his move. But it was one of those weird ones where it's like, well, he got what he wanted, but De Zerbi still showed discipline. But what was really interesting that came out of it, it goes back to what we said before, is that there's a really good core group of senior players in the Brighton dressing room, centered around Adam Lallana for the most part. And Adam Lallana is in the coach's ear constantly. And he's the one that allows the rest of the team to basically have an opinion on everything. And Lallana came out after the fact and basically badmouthed the way Trossard behaved, without De Zerbi having to do it himself. So when you've got these multiple individuals, and it's based on what Phil was saying, when you've got a Keane in the dressing room or someone else like that who has the respect of the rest of the club, it changes the dynamic massively. It's a bit of a shame how it's sort of gone down at Man U, because it's hard for Ten Hag, because he's been a disciplinarian. Like, with the situation that cropped up with, was it Rashford who turned up a little bit late for something the other day, a few weeks back, and he was like, all right, well, you're not going to play next game. That was a big move. What else can you do outside of fining wages or dropping them or pushing them out to do their own training sessions like he's now doing with Sancho? He's doing all that's in his power, really. It's just, is there an awareness for the rest of the group? I thought it was the story that's doing the rounds at the moment. You saw Beckham came out, did an interview, whatever, when he talked about how when he had his mohawk, and Fergie was like, "No, mate, you're shaving that off." And he's like, "What? Yeah, no, shave it off." And he did it. Could you imagine that happening now? There's no way. There's no way. And it's part generational, but it's part the club. Like, I bet you Guardiola would still get away with something like that. And sure, De Zerbi would as well, I bet you.
Yeah, you earn the respect, don't you?
Yeah,
I'm sure he's earned the respect by what he's done on the field. Like, but do you think do you think it shows the difference in character between how Rashford reacted last year and how Sancho reacted this season for quite similar incidents?
I think so. But what baffles me a little bit is you never heard a lot of this stuff about Sancho at Dortmund. But you've seen when after Bellingham moved to Real Madrid, you heard some stuff that came out of the Dortmund changing room about, Bellingham's a bit up his own arse and he gets ahead of himself and he doesn't have the respect. And suddenly he looks like he's going to win the bloody Ballon d'Or about 3-4 games into Real Madrid. Yeah. All the problems go out the window when the performances are there and what happens on the pitch. And if not, everything comes out the woodwork. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that now. So Rashford's got the right character about him. There's no questions about Rashford's character. Whereas, some dickheads sometimes slip through the no dickhead policy. There is one,
Oh, definitely. And trust me, over the last 5 years, there's been more than enough dickheads.
Yeah.
We're not short of them. I'm sure if you look at the squad, you could probably pick out one in each position. But just before we come on to talk about Brighton, because we are going to talk about the sensational work, obviously, De Zerbi's done, your transfer window recently, ins and outs, because it is fascinating. Some of the players that have moved on and how you replace them every year. There is someone, obviously, who's been else at Man United, Harry Maguire. He's been in the news again this week. I think his mum put out a statement today to say he was a nice boy. With the best will in the world for Harry Maguire. Obviously, I'm Scottish. I found it hilarious when he scored the own goal the other night. And it was more just it had to be him, didn't it? When he got brought on and it was an own goal. But the reason things like that happen to Harry Maguire, and they happen like that more often now, is because he's not playing as much. And the reason he's not playing as much is because he's not at the level to play at Man United. And when he's not at the level to play at Man United, and he then comes out and says, I don't deserve all this stick, so play more. And he got a chance to go and play more in the summer. And then there was a monetary issue, so he didn't want to. I'm so confused about where Maguire's mind is, whether he wants to be a Man United player and thinks he can be a Man United player, which Ten Hag has shown that he's now 6th choice centre back with Johnny Evans coming in. He'd rather play Luke Shaw, who's a left back, and 5'10" at left centre back.
Looks a million times better as well, doesn't he?
He looks so much better.
Yeah. Well,
Callum,
I don't think Maguire's a better player, though. I just basically think that the situation is the game's kind of passed him by a little bit because as tactics have changed and teams have found new ways of playing, he's basically stayed pretty much the same. He's a head it and boot it traditional centre half, and there's still a place for players like that. I mean, if he had gone to West Ham in the summer in that team under David Moyes, he would have absolutely flourished, and then he would have been playing well. He'd been and he would have got confidence back, and then just maybe, he'd have been playing for England on merit. But I can't see that he's got any place in that team at the moment other than the blind. What's the word I'm looking for? The blind faith that Sanchez is that Southgate has actually got for him, because it's just I can understand why he wants him there and he's never let him down, but there's better players, and because of the way that he plays, and particularly the way that most modern football's played, you've got to be better with your feet. You've got to be able to think quickly. You've got to play the game 10 yards further forward, because if you're playing the position that he's in, everyone else is going to have to be 10 yards further back, and therefore the quick passing that you need to like break through teams and attack and score goals, it's going to slow down because everyone else is out of position.
No, absolutely. And Callum, where does Harry Maguire go now? How does this end? Does this end with a January transfer because he's so determined to get into this England side? And then there'll be massive statements about a poison sort of atmosphere at United causing his like drop in or whatever. Like, you can see it written in the stars that he's going to leave Man United. There's going to be a big press release. He'll sit down and do an interview with someone, and it'll all be Man United's fault. Why
it'll be United's fault because it's always United's fault. But in terms of Harry Maguire, Man United paid £80 million for him, which is why he's become almost this meme. But everyone knew when he was bought for that amount of money that he was never worth that. If Man United went to Leicester City a few years ago and bought him for £40 million, everyone would love him. But the fact that he the mistakes he makes are almost like his luck is almost unbelievable at the thing.
It's actually comical. Like some of the errors.
Pair that with the fact that he cost £80 million, and then pair it with the fact that he plays for Manchester United, a club notoriously well known for being all over the pages in the news because it sells them papers. It just all fits perfectly for the narrative to be constantly, let's pile on Maguire. Now, the idea that he's the most abused player and all that, right? Look, you can think two things. You can think it's wrong for him to be abused the way he is. But you can also think it's also wrong. It's also not the case that he's the most abused player. This idea that he is. David Beckham had effigies and dartboards made out of his face when he did that in 1998, and then came back and went on and won the treble, and the media completely shut up. The thing is, both things are wrong. The media to blame for the way that Harry Maguire is being treated, because the way they constantly bring him up and try and make him to be a joke gets them clicks, gets them engagement, sells them papers, and it makes Harry Maguire get laughed at and get joked about by United. And the thing is, United fans do it as well, which is really wrong, and that's the thing that bothers me. Personally, don't think Maguire should be shouldn't have been United captain. Don't think we should have ever paid £80 million for him. I think there would have definitely been better things out there on the market. Look at the way Brighton operate. And that comment right there says everything, because it's completely true. But ultimately, Maguire is ridiculed because of his price tag and the fact that he plays for United. And the clickbait nowadays media use him for laughs and jokes and memes because it gets them engagement. And then in a few months' time, when something goes really wrong with Maguire, God forbid it does, they all preach mental health and say how they never knew what was wrong with him because they're all hypocrites. I will always criticise Maguire for football ability. I don't think he's good enough for Man United. I think he would have been great for West Ham. I think he'd have been good at Tottenham. I think he'd have been good at Everton, maybe even Brighton. But he's not a Man United player anymore, certainly not in the way the game's moving on. He was certainly never a Manchester United captain in the way he conducted himself after games without taking any responsibility or accountability for the mistakes and the performances. That was the worst thing. You can contrast that by the way Bruno operates and the way Bruno conducts himself in interviews afterwards as well. And all of that has just piled onto Maguire to get him abuse. And the fact that that's happened has then led the clickbait media to try and pile on him as well. And it's become a joke and a meme, and he's constantly lambasted for it. Honestly, the one thing I will give Harry Maguire credit for is his mental strength must genuinely be unbelievable, because the things that you see about him online, like the bomb threats and the gun and the bullet threats and things like that, they're awful. And the fact that he's managed to just continue to still play for England when he shouldn't, let's have it right, he shouldn't be picked for England. He just shouldn't be. When Southgate comes out and preaches form and having to play for your club to be picked for England, but picks the likes of Jordan Henderson, who's just gone to a league in Saudi Arabia, Calvin Phillips, who's played 6 minutes of football this season, and Harry Maguire, who, if I'm right, I don't think started a game this season. He shouldn't be playing for England. Whether we have the other players who can step in is another matter, but he shouldn't be playing for England, because that isn't. To play for your country, you should be in best form, and no matter who you play for, you should be in form and playing well, and that's how you represent your country. So the fact that you've got these players like Calvin Phillips, Harry Maguire, Jordan Henderson still representing shows that there's a major fault of the manager, not Harry Maguire. And then Harry Maguire is still the one that gets stick for being picked, What are you going to go? What are you going to do? What are you going to go? No, I'm not going to play for England. Well, of course you're going to. The same thing with United. You got offered nearly 200 grand a week to play for Man United. Are you going to go? No, I'm not actually worth that. It's Man United offering him that money. They're the ones at fault for it. So
do you not think there has to come a pit though where he has to be responsible for his own career and his own and taking advantage? He can stop this narrative. He can stop this narrative by going to play Premier League football and playing well.
Course, yeah, he can get himself out of that toxic environment at United. But the thing he can do that, and ultimately the amount of money he earns at United, he's not going to earn anywhere else. He just isn't, unless he goes to Saudi Arabia, which I don't think he will do. But let's have it right. He wasn't exactly earning pittance or offered pittance at West Ham. He was still offered a lot of money. And if he wants to play regularly, the only thing I can think he was offered assurances by Southgate that he would continue in the England squad, because if he wanted to get out of this toxic environment, I think going, and I think it was you before, AD, who said he would flourish at West Ham.
Under David Moyes and that particular style of football that they play there. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, he's a head it and boot it kind of defender, and like I said, the game's moved up. I mean, finally
I give him slightly more credit than head it and boot it kind of defender. But
he can pass a bit.
Well, which way is he heading and booting it?
That's what there is at the moment. But I mean, finally, Southgate got over his Brighton myopia and actually picked Lewis Dunk on Tuesday. After
I'm going to come to that.
The point when it comes to form,
and I mean, Lewis has been statistically the best defender in the league for the last 5 years. He's like most passes, most clearances, most headers. He's been on top of every table that if you go onto the stats on the Premier League website, defensively wise, Lewis is top of the tree, and he's finally, he came in and like he must have been gutted when Maguire came on because it blotted his clean sheet.
Because he was excellent. He was fantastic. Like Scotland didn't stand a chance every time, and he had the hard job as well because against Scotland, what you need to stop is that left-hand side and stop the left inside channel. And he was playing on that side where not only you try to stop Robertson, but Tierney is on the underlap, and like McGregor was floating into those areas. So he had the hardest job and still was ridiculously good. And that's where I said with Callum, like Maguire's got the ability to stop this narrative. Like, I have sympathy in the fact that no one should be getting personal abuse for not being good at their for not being to the level that other people hold them to in their job. I get that, but this whole getting his mum to come out and write a statement because he's a nice boy, you can stop this narrative and this whole.
The schools have gone back this week. That's what it is.
He should have left. He should have left in the summer. It's simple as that. He should have left. He should have took that ever so slight pay cut in the grand. For us, it seems like loads and loads of money. But, we're never going to see that kind of money. But for him, he'd like to think he's set for life. And that isn't really a pay cut for him. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in that world, I suppose. But it's just still a hell of a lot of money to earn. And I think when you're playing football regularly and, you'd be living in London and all that, surely it would have just been better for him. And it would have also stopped the critics of him being picked for England because he would have been playing regularly. It also stops that criticism of him because he's playing regularly. So that his England place isn't in question. If he starts playing well, it then changes everybody else's narrative that he's a bad footballer when in reality he just isn't, is it? So he could have easily gone, do you know what, I'll take the pay cut. But you can also see it from the side of, well, he plays for Man United. So you're not just going to give up on that. You really do want to fight for your place.
Yeah.
But it comes a point then when you're like, the manager clearly doesn't want you.
I genuinely just don't think he's got a chance. Like, it came out, I want to fight for my place. And I was like, you've lost the fight. You lost the fight before Ten Hag came in. It didn't matter. Like, the fight was what? Phil, from like an inside perspective, do you see where Maguire's coming from in terms of the need? It's almost like a need that he needs to stay at Man United rather than a want. I just want to see
what you have to do, Phil, here as well, and Phil will tell you exactly this. What you have to do, it's very, very easy to forget. And with the Dele Alli interview that came out a little while ago, it's very easy to forget that footballers are actually human beings. They're not just commodities. They've got lives off the pitch. They've got families. They've got kids. It affects everything that they do. Obviously, they earn a lot of money. And with this transfer to West Ham, I mean, like I said, it would have made it for us talking about it and looking at it for a purely footballing point of view. It makes total sense. And as Phil was saying earlier, it's all about, is that hunger to actually play football there, or is it all about the money? But you don't know. His kids could be really settled at school. They could have problems, and he doesn't want to move them. His family could be settled where it's, and bringing everyone down to London, it's a big shift in environment, and it could upset the whole dynamic in his family. So, his wife could have a job in and around the Manchester area, which she really doesn't want to leave. There's all sorts of things. You have to remember that when you're throwing all this abuse at players, that they are human beings first and foremost, and it's very easy to forget that.
That's Phil, do you echo that?
Yeah, I agree. I think, as Eddie just said there, that obviously does come into the sort of situation when you're weighing up what you are going to do with your career. I think purely from a footballing point of view, the best thing for him would obviously be to move on. If he went to West Ham, he's obviously going to be playing a lot more regular football, and therefore giving himself a better chance, and deserving a chance to play for England. I think at the moment, not playing any games for Man United and, playing in England squad is a bit of a farce. And as you say, with all the sort of, stick he's been getting and sort of the media that follows him round, I think, for me, it would be a good idea. It's a fresh slate. He could maybe go somewhere else and start afresh, and sort of try and, prove people wrong by doing, he's talking on the field. I think for me, as we've said, though, you don't obviously know all the story behind it. Obviously, I know there's the situation where his contract improved because we got Champions League football. So again, is he driven by, playing football, or is he driven by how much money he brings on? All these little things, we don't know the player well enough really to comment and sort of, judge him. The club obviously give him these stipulations in his contract. So again, that falls back on Man United being at fault really for, offering players that they maybe didn't think was, worth the price tag or worth the money. So for me, if it was a pure football decision, if I was him, I would look to be moving on and as I say, reigniting my career and trying to, just get myself in a new club, knuckle down, put my performances on the pitch and just try and let everything else fall into place. Because at the minute, it just seems like everything he does is going wrong. There's always people there ready to shoot him down regardless of what he does. And I just think, the race is certainly run at Man United. He's not going to play. We've got 5 or 6 players ahead of him. So it just isn't going to work. So I think January he does need to maybe bite the bullet and move on.
No, absolutely. I agree. I think that's how this ends. I think January he gets a move somewhere. I don't know if it'll be West Ham. I don't know where it'll be. I just think he'll get a move somewhere because I think the writing will be on the wall when he's not played in any of the Champions League games, when he's maybe got 100 minutes in the league by January. I think the writing might be on the wall. That's like, no, you've generally got no chance there. I do want to move on, obviously, to talk about the opposition, talk about Brighton. Fantastic start to the season. Obviously, you had your customary game against Manchester United, which wasn't as horrifying as I thought it was going to be compared to last year. A really fascinating transfer window from Brighton this summer. Adam, I'll come to you. What are your thoughts on the recruitment that Brighton obviously... the players that they brought in, obviously, there will be players there that will become household names in a couple of years. Obviously, a lot of young guys brought in as well. But I think this is maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you brought in a couple of really proven players that have played at top clubs, obviously Ansu Fati, which is ridiculous, by the way. I don't think if someone had told you 3 years ago that you're saying Ansu Fati,
no, you told me 3 hours before the transfer was announced, I would have said you an idiot. So, it was crazy. A weird transfer window, because it's weird to say that it was a good transfer window when you essentially lost 2 of your best players. I'm not going to say your 2 best players, but you lost a World Cup winner and then a player for 15 million, that's a hard thing to recover from. But you're right. I mean, we signed a very promising keeper in Bart Verbruggen, who was coveted by Vincent Kompany over at Burnley. He's come in and he fits in incredibly well to the style of play, which is all structured around the keeper getting the ball out to the central defenders and then building out from the back once the pressure comes on. But then you've got João Pedro, who you brought up before, who we're very, very excited about. Ansu Fati, who we've not seen play, which I think we might well see him play this weekend.
Can't wait to absolutely torch Dallo or Wan-Bissaka. I'm really excited for that.
It'd be nice to see, because Wan-Bissaka's been a bit of a pain in the side for us, like the last few times around. Like Matoma struggled a little bit with him, so we'll see. And then Milner's not been great in his first few games. We've been trying to shove him in at right back, and it's not really where I think we should be playing him. But Mahmoud Dahoud from Dortmund as well. We've not even seen the young lad we bought from Lille, Baliba, to be Moises Caicedo's replacement. We've not even seen, we bought a centre back from Fiorentina. Yeah, Baliba's 19 years old. So we've not even seen half of these players yet, which is ridiculous given a club of our bankroll and size, because we've not spent all the money we've made net by any means, and we probably never will. But the fact that we've been able to recover so immediately from that after losing some of these massive players has been really, really impressive.
Absolutely. Is there a sense that I just don't? What I always get from Brighton fans, or what I seem to see from Brighton fans online, is like when these signings come in. Obviously, we spent big money this window, but there just never seems to be like, "Oh, this has to work," sort of thing around the signings. Like it's never. Man United get players in, it's like they have to score 20 goals now, and you're like, no, they don't. Like, and I think Brighton are a testament to that. Like, João Pedro can go this season and score 5-6 Premier League goals, and as long as he shows the right things and he's getting in the right places and really he's meeting the right statistics, he's going to get another goal next year, and then next year he probably scores a lot of goals. Do you agree that there's not this sense of?
Well, there is. We've had to learn patience, and obviously there are those within our fan base who aren't that patient. But there are. But generally speaking, the club has earned the right for the fans to be patient, because it's. It doesn't matter how much money someone's paid for you. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to hit the ground running straight away. The money they pay for you is just how much someone's willing to pay for you. It doesn't affect you. Doesn't mean you're going to start every game. It doesn't mean you're going to be in the squad. It just means that's how much you cost. And the manager's not looking at the price tag when he picks the team. And he's purely looking at the ability. And, it is, when you at a big club like United, I guess when you're signing players for a lot of money, they've all got reputations. You want the ready-made player. We at Brighton, we know we're not necessarily going to get the ready-made player. It's going to take maybe 1, 2, possibly even 3 seasons to even see the best of what we've got. We saw that. The classic example was Yves Bissouma, who took really long time to actually get into his stride. But boy, when he did, was it worth it? And he was absolutely fantastic.
Now look at him.
And actually, now Spurs are actually beginning to see the player that we had.
He's so good.
Because they've actually got a manager that will actually believes in him.
Yeah.
But we just have to. We're looking at the players. There was Igor Julio, who we signed from Fiore. Pre-season, De Zerbi said that he's not necessarily going to come straight in. He needs to, in his words, he needs to learn my way. We're just really, really excited. We know that replacing the likes of Caicedo and losing McAllister, and I'm absolutely devastated to lose McAllister. He's my favourite player. He was just absolutely a joy to watch, and an absolutely wonderful human being off the pitch as well. And that's what we've got at this club. We've got wonderful human beings off the pitch. They've all got time for each other. They all hang out together, and it's just. That's how you make a team. That's how you bond a team, and that's how you've got players running through walls for each other.
That's fair enough. Adam, just quickly, what I want to know honestly, in terms of obviously what De Zerbi's done has been fantastic and things like that, and obviously Potter laid this groundwork. But when Graham Potter left a year ago for his nightmare Chelsea spell, which I'm sure you guys didn't find funny.
No.
I'm sure you didn't enjoy any minute of that. What were your initial reactions? Were you worried in terms of De Zerbi coming in? Obviously, he had the background, and over here was torturous. Like you could tell the punditry in the UK when he'd gone here and he'd been there and he got sacked from there, and there was just no one looked at his work. Was there a nervousness from yourself and from Brighton fans that this could go really horribly wrong here?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for AD, but I think people, it's easy. You can get really revisionist once like everything's unfolded, and it's easy to look back and be like, oh no, he's always going to be great. And Tony Bloom's always got a plan, which we find out actually kind of has at this point. You learn to trust Tony Bloom and Paul Barber. But frankly, you lose your manager after the season has started. You lose a bunch of your backroom staff. You lose club legends in people like Bruno that have murals in the middle of Brighton. Well, not anymore. And you lose some of your best players at that point in like Yves Bissouma. And you suddenly go, we're staring down the end of the calendar year, going into a World Cup that's taking place in like November, December. Like, what the hell is going to happen here? Like, is this going to be a relegation battle for us? That's what I was thinking. De Zerbi's background, yeah, he did some amazing stuff at Sassuolo, and there was loads of like online tactical nerds posting YouTube videos, like getting all pumped up about how he like redefines. You're like, okay, mate, yeah, I'm sure. Let's actually see him do it. Like Sassuolo's different. The Italian league is very, very different. You know, he had his bit of a stint at Shakhtar Donetsk before the war broke out, and he's had exposure to European football prior, but there was a million question marks. But my word is that, and this is what I think is really interesting. We've touched on Spurs a little bit, and I hate giving props to Spurs because they usually make the worst decision possible, and it's funny. But Ange Postecoglou is a similar mold to De Zerbi, right? As a guy that's come and he's proven himself in like random places, lower level clubs in other parts of the world, but he's got the right character and he can get the right playing style out of his players, and you see it instantly. And we saw the same thing with De Zerbi instantly.
Like, week one at Celtic, you saw it.
No, it's completely different style.
Celtic season ticket holders, and they watched 1 week, and they're like, "This is the guy.
Yeah,
like, this is the guy." Like they watched 1 week, and they turned players that were average into these workhorses. He brought in, and he used his contacts, bringing in like Japanese players like Furuhashi and Daisen Maeda and Ryo Hatate, and the amount of Celtic fans that are like, "Oh, don't know, but this guy won't be long. He won't last." Bringing in these Japanese players, and they were phenomenal. And they're still phenomenal. And Furuhashi's still the best striker in the country, in Scotland. He just is.
Yeah.
And it's not even close. And I just think, like, I can't believe how right they got it, Brighton. I just can't believe how it seemed like it was a match made. It just seemed like there couldn't have been a more perfect person to sort of build on what Potter.
Yeah, I mean, when Potter left, I mean, it really felt like somebody had died, and they actually had. It was the same day as the Queen died, actually. And it was just absolutely
second biggest news in the country.
Absolutely devastated. And we were saying that, look, I mean, Potter, he is up until last season, he was probably the best manager that we'd ever had. He led us to a highest ever place finish in the Premier League, playing the best football that we'd probably ever seen. And when he went, we were absolutely devastated. I mean, we just had beaten Leicester 5-2 in an absolutely fantastic game. You know, we've gone from this Brighton XG Albion to a team that actually scores goals, and then all of a sudden he went to Chelsea, and you know, and he could have gone to any other club and he would have gone with our best wishes. But the fact that he went to that absolute cesspit of a club is just absolutely horrific. And then we only interviewed one manager, and that was, we're only ever interested in one, and that was De Zerbi, and we got him. And you know, we had his first game 3-3 at Anfield with Trossard scoring a hat trick. And first player to score a hat trick at Anfield for a very long time from away team, you know. And then it took him a while to get his first win, and that first win came against Chelsea. And how pleased were we, Adam?
I'd say fairly happy.
Happy. On a scale of 1 to 10, moderately happy.
Yeah, put it in the deep double digits.
And then we carried on this trajectory, and we started to score more goals. We scored 96 goals in all last season, which was incredible. And the way that this season started, we're looking at possibly getting into triple figures this season. So particularly as we're playing in an extra competition as well, that could well happen. So, and De Zerbi led us again to our highest ever finish. We're qualified for Europe, and the world's our oyster at the moment. I mean, no club has a divine right to success. No one, and it is. We know that it could crash and burn very, very quickly. So we're just enjoying the ride as long as we can. But I mean, all the time that Tony Bloom's in charge, and all the time that Paul Barber's there as well. You just feel that we're going to continue growing, and we don't know what could possibly be achieved. I mean, we want to win something. That's where we want to be.
Can I ask you, Man U fans, a question based on what we've sort of said there about De Zerbi?
You can if you don't say Man U.
What we said about De Zerbi and what we said about Postecoglou there, they come in and you see this change in football and it's night and day, and you suddenly, does that give you, what's the feeling with Ten Hag when it comes around to, are you seeing that, or do you guys still have pause around him?
It's happening slightly, but it can't happen fully, and I don't think it can with these owners. I don't think it can with the shared level of nightmare online fans we have. I don't think it'll ever happen. I think if De Zerbi was to be hired by United tomorrow, he would all of a sudden become bad manager by the media. And he would all of a sudden become a not good enough, not big enough manager by certain people online. Like some people online seem to have this thing about Man United, they should only sign players from Real Madrid. And like you were saying before about Brighton finding, shopping in Lidl or wherever. That should be something every club should do. Every club should look for the talent and nurture it, because at the end of the day, there are players out there that are worth £4 or £5 million that are world class. But the big clubs like United, or even going abroad like Real Madrid, I suppose, they all seem to have this sense that the player's only good if they are worth 60, 70, 80 million pounds. If anything, the teams, Brighton, Brentford, can't think of any others off the top of my head, but they find players who are cheap and very, very good. Like, and about the goalkeeper for Bruggen before, how much did he cost? Like £12 million.
I think we got really more for Sanchez on the way out, who can't catch a ball.
Yeah, exactly. Like it blows my mind how he's somehow gone to Chelsea. And the weird thing is, he was such a, from my experience, you can tell me different, but Sanchez was such a loved player at Brighton at one stage, and all of a sudden, you had a manager that all of a sudden became so loved so quickly that Brighton fans were kind of happy to see him leave, because they were happy for Steele to take over, because they knew you'd replace in the summer, because you're so shrewd in the market. And I genuinely think Brighton could have had prime Lionel Messi at 27, 28, sold him for £500 million and just replaced him with ease, because you're that good at recruitment and that good at knowing what players will fit. I don't think you have a manager's style of play. I think you have a club who know how you want to play and will do anything and go to hell and back to find the perfect manager to play like that. I don't think you go for a manager who might play like a certain way. I think you know what you want. I think you have a complete philosophy run throughout your club where players will fit it and managers that will be like that, and you go out and get that. Whereas I feel like United over the past 10 years, and maybe to a lesser extent with Ten Hag, but because we've got the recruitment behind us, we kind of buy players because they're good and just hope fit. Whereas Brighton do something completely different. You know what you want and go find that, and probably have a list as long as my arm of players and managers. Like if De Zerbi went to, I don't know, Real Madrid tomorrow, you have a manager next week who'd probably just continue perfectly. Because at the end of the day, everyone was terrified for Brighton last year when Potter left. De Zerbi came in and he's ended up finishing the highest Brighton have ever finished and qualified for Europe. It was almost like nobody should have worried at all. It's it's almost jealousy, if I'm honest. And
it is. It's not almost. It absolutely is.
That Brighton have managed to get it so perfect, and I think it's because you've got owners that care. That if you have something at the very top that cares and shows love for that football club, it goes throughout, and it goes all the way down to the bottom to the cleaners at the club. They all have pride in what they do, and Man United do not have that.
Well, you mentioned the cleaners there. I mean, if the club has any sort of success, everyone gets a bonus, from the players right down to the cleaners to the tea lady. They all get a bonus, a percentage bonus of their wages at the end of every season, depending on the success of the team. So everyone's got a vested interest in how we do.
Exactly, and that goes from the top all the way down to the bottom. But when you have owners that don't care, and when you have chairmen and CEOs and all that who put out statements about players in the hope that they can return in the season because they're a commodity and a financial asset to the club, because the only thing that the club cares about is money, it shows a complete lack of care and a complete sort of gap between fans and club, because there's a clear bubble that the club seems to live in, whether it's the hierarchy or maybe even some of the players, especially with United fans and what goes on in the club, because it seems like everybody in Brighton, even if you don't like football, is invested in the football club, because it sort of becomes such a community thing that you're all so loved, and United is so far from that at the moment.
Yeah, you're everyone's second team. You're everyone's second team. Whereas, like, if you ask any Premier League fan, who's the club, most Premier League fans, who's the club you hate the most, it's Man United. Whereas, like, Brighton do it so well, they do it so right. Phil, obviously, I'm sure you agree with Callum in terms of the ownership aspect and things like that. And do you agree that it is jealousy from the Man United side that Brighton can get it so right on so many occasions, and Man United can only get it wrong? And they've proved that even more over the last couple of
seasons. Yeah, 100%. I think the word that you're probably looking for to epitomise it is the shrewd with the business. They fit the right players for what they're looking for. Whereas I think because Manchester United have obviously been renowned for winning trophies over the year, and obviously we've not been in a position like that for a long time on a consistent basis. I think what you find is we will spend and pay well over the odds for these big names and for these players that we're hoping are going to come in and hit the ground running and transform the team instantly. Whereas obviously we've seen over the last decade that we've made massive signings and these players haven't come in and delivered the goods. And then what you find is you've got players on big contracts on massive wages, and when the apple cart's been upset, you find yourself in massive predicaments, and that's whether it's new managers coming in having to deal with players who aren't happy because they're on big money and they think they've got a divine right to be playing every week. And I think that's been a conveyor belt that sort of reoccurred over a period of time. And I think now we're in a position where this manager's came in. I think he has been sort of the best that we've had for quite a while in terms of he's had to deal with a hell of a lot in terms of the Ronaldo saga. We could name 5 or 6 big things that he's had to deal with, as well as what's happening at the minute with Anthony and Sancho. So I think he's come through a lot in terms of what he's had to deal with in such a short space of time as a manager, when really all he wants to be doing is focusing on, setting the team up to be performing at its best. So I feel for him in that respect, because I think, any manager that's had to deal with all that crap, in the midst of trying to get a team at a level to perform and achieve things that, the fans are craving is really difficult. But yeah, I think, you look at Brighton and teams like that, and the way they go about things is admirable. And yeah, you're right. We look at that and we are jealous, because, as I say, we'll pay 5 times more for a player that probably won't play as well, or who won't fulfill his potential as much as the players they pick out. And as I say, it's a great product and sort of model that they run off.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And obviously one example of them getting it massively right, as it was mentioned in the comments, is Evan Ferguson. It's been spoken about this week in the press that Manchester United are monitoring Evan Ferguson. He is, of course, a Manchester United fan. Adam, tell me, obviously we've all seen Ferguson, we've seen him, his ability, we've seen that he's a proper number 9. Is it obviously, is it going to be a case of, if Man United were to get Evan Ferguson, that's going to have to be a fee higher than Caicedo?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen how Brighton negotiate.
Yes.
And
I don't think it's happening, because we got Højlund. I don't think we'll go and buy another striker. We can't make one player better. We're not going to be able to make two in the same position better.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Højlund doesn't score at least 10 goals by the end of the season. He'll be
probably
aside, you know, and be on to the next one. But look, he is the Matoma's that little bit older, right? Because you probably put Matoma up there as the crown jewel at the moment in the Brighton team. Adie's disagreeing with me a little bit, but that's my opinion. But he's a little bit older. So you look at Evan Ferguson.
Personally. I think Enciso's like.
I mean, Enciso was on a really nice track. I think Matoma gets a little bit of service because he set the league alight last year, and he started off again incredibly well. He's just an incredibly impressive player. But Evan Ferguson has the mold to be what is now back in fashion, which is an old school number 9. He's got the body of a 28-year-old weightlifter. Like he's got the touch of like prime strikers that are Premier League legends in, you know, back in their pomp. But he committed to this club at a young age because he wanted game time, because he wanted to prove himself. Adie touched on this a little bit later, right? Manchester United. Yeah, I mean, I think my opinion on this in general is that he can want to move to Manchester United as much as he wants. Manchester United can want him as much as they want. Until someone comes in and stumps up the amount of money or the amount of zeros that Paul Barber and team want, he doesn't go anywhere. And there's a number for every Brighton player. It might not be decided right now, but there's a number for every single player. And it's going to be a really, really, really big number. And they're under no pressure to sell him because he doesn't strike me as the kind of kid that's going to come out and be like, I'm not playing then. Screw this club. I hate you. He doesn't have that character.
Yeah.
I regret to say that.
Yeah.
But
he's not even our first striker.
Yeah,
he's never going to try and force his way out of a club like Brighton. Like, he might try and force his way out of a club that's in turmoil like Manchester United. But he's not looking at Man United now and going, "Oh, that looks like a dream place to play."
How long is his contract?
5, 4
he just signed a new contract beginning of the season. I think it's 5 years he's got at the moment.
Oh,
right.
Again.
So 150 million at least.
Yeah, it's at least 150.
The bidding starts at 175, but he's not for sale at the end of the day. I mean, like Adam said, you know, the club know they've got a really good asset on their hands.
2028.
But no one's going to come in. He won't go for any less than 175 in the current market because that's the way we negotiate. But he's still very young. He's very raw. Okay, yes, he scored 4 goals already this season, brilliant, including a hat trick. But he's not our first striker. We've got Fatty to come in. We've got Pedro. We've got Danny Welbeck. We've got Danny started the first couple of games of the season, and actually Evan and Danny have actually dovetailed quite nicely together in the past. So. There will be a lot of rotation this year, and Evan will be managed. Don't forget, he's still so very, very, very young, and he's not going to start every game. But we're looking, if he gets 15 plus goals this season, we'll be absolutely delighted. But he's such a talent. He's quite literally got the world at his feet. He could be anything he wants to be because there currently isn't another striker like him apart from the one at your rivals.
That's fair. Callum, what are your thoughts on Ferguson, and how do you think he compares to Højlund? Because body-wise, in terms of how they play, it's quite similar, but we've not seen a lot of Højlund yet.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, they're both big, strong strikers from what I can see. I'll be honest, I didn't really see a lot of Højlund in Italy, so I can't really comment. Obviously, this season I've seen a bit more of Evan Ferguson, and the guy is genuinely a brilliant young player. I think it's still important to remember, like you say, he's young, he's still quite raw. And the fact that I didn't even know he scored 4 goals. I just looked at the wrong column and I thought he'd scored 1. But he's not, he's 4. So, wow, fair play to him. Literally, I did not know that. So, yeah, incredible. It's like you say, I think in terms of the fees you can get for players and the fees you have got for players, the fact I didn't realise he had 4 or 5 years left on his deal. The fact that United probably couldn't afford £150 a minute, never mind 150 million, probably the sensible part of my head says he isn't coming anywhere near Man United anytime soon, but my heart says he's a Man United fan. What better way to come
by the way?
You what? Sorry.
Says Moyes' Caicedo.
Yeah, he was a fan of everyone for about 2 years.
Yeah, they're all fans of everyone. Where they're like, oh yeah,
he was fans of Real Madrid, Chelsea, Arsenal, and United at one point, and then eventually went to Chelsea. But obviously, he grew up a United fan, stuff like that. So, I mean, ultimately, you'd like to think that the fairy tale romance in me, he's kind of thinking, what better way to come to a club that you supported all your life and take him back to the big time, I suppose. Something like that is always something nice, especially as a United fan yourself, to think about. Whether it happened, it won't happen anytime soon at all. I mean, no. I know you said before about Caicedo hoping to leave this country and go elsewhere. Obviously, that didn't happen. I'd be surprised if Ferguson would do the same. I think he'd probably stay in the country as well, but he's really got the ability to really go far, I think. And for me, he's like a young Harry Kane kind of thing. If you have Harry Kane to United, Kane could have took us very close to a league title. I think he's kind of got that ceiling in 5 years. Ferguson could potentially take us to a title. Hoylett still could, but I just don't know enough about to be able to say if he could or not.
First footballing hero.
I think I would have said Wayne Rooney, because he had the show, Wayne Rooney Street Striker. So I used to watch him, and he used to support United as a kid. So I used to watch him, and I knew all that, and he was just unbelievable, yeah.
So, could you have a round of applause to Fan 14?
So that was Keane's,
I didn't realise you had propaganda on the show. Look at this.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason Keane's backstage is just so he can.
That's a copyright report from the Brighton fans.
Yeah.
We only spell that's harsh. I won't say that. I do want to quickly get on to obviously looking at the game. We'll quickly do score predictions because I'm not confident at all. So, Phil, I'll come to you first. What do you think the score is going to be with Man United and Brighton on Saturday afternoon? It's 3 o'clock, isn't it?
3 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah,
ridiculous, by the way.
I want to be optimistic. However, I just think because of the way we started the season, obviously all the controversy around the club at the minute with everything that's going on, I just can't see us, being in a place where we're going to be able to play well enough to beat Brighton. I think Brighton have been fantastic this year, other than the West Ham game where I think they just sort of West Ham came with a game plan. I think they had 20% possession and just took all the chances that night, and it was just a one-off game. But other than that, they've been outstanding. I am always optimistic, so I'm going to go for a draw. I think a point would be a good result off the back of obviously, some not so good performances up till now. So I think a point, and then looking onto some more games where we've got winnable matches coming forward, I think that would be a good result. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Callum?
Oh God, I don't frigging know, to be honest. But we've got 3 of our centre backs out. Our £160 million worth of right wingers can't be bothered, and one of them's being investigated by the police. So honestly, I am not optimistic whatsoever. But I'd probably say, I'd probably 0-0, to be honest, and that's been helpful.
That's fair. Keane thinks 2-2. Is it odd for you guys as Brighton fans to be at the point where you're the heavy favourite against 5 years ago?
Won the last 3 Premier League games against you guys,
apart from the last couple of seasons. But if you think about from where you've come from, that you're now, I would imagine you're the bookies' favourite to be beating Man United on Saturday, because we are terrible.
I was actually at Old Trafford last year when I think it was the first game of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 1-2.
No, do you know what? From what I remember that day, you battered us genuinely. The optimism of the first game of the season and all that, and honestly, it was absolutely whisked away from us immediately because you absolutely battered us. From what I remember, you really did.
Yeah, Pascal. Yeah. It is weird, to answer your question. It is weird, but everything's weird. We've got Ansu Fati playing, getting 150 million for players, being favourites playing in Europe. It's all stupid. We're just enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know.
What you have to remember is some of us have been watching the Albion for like over 40 years, and like in all 4 divisions, and you know we always start with a point and think that's a bonus. So we'll take that. The glass is always half empty when we start this.
That's fair.
So we have to be
Adam,
positive. But you know, when we've got strikers that have been touted at 175 million, when you watch some of the strikers I used to watch in the 4th division, it's like, I'm looking at you, Ashley Neil. It's like,
well, not that long ago, it was Neil Mopay.
But Mopay was all right for us.
No, he wasn't. He couldn't score a goal.
If he was that good, he would have been sticking around. Yeah, score prediction.
That's why we were Brighton next year Albion, because he kept on missing most of them. But it was like he did get some.
Well, it's
wouldn't
take it back now. I think we win. I think we win here, and I think we win fairly comfortably. Like this is a De Zerbi side. There's always a goal at either end. So I think we win this one. Yeah. Give me 3-1.
I think we score if Hoyland plays, to be fair. Do you know what? I'll change. I'll go 1-1. I think Brighton always score, and hopefully with a clinical striker and Bruno creating chances like he does, I think we might actually score. So, go 1-1.
I don't think you're going to sit. I don't think you're going to. I think the pressure's going to be on for you to like play an offensive game, and that will leave you open at the back. That might let us in. I think Matoma could have a lot of fun. And if he doesn't, we've got Solly March. And if he doesn't, we've got Ansu Fati. And if he doesn't, we've got even Adam Lallana could probably have a go. It's
you got Welbeck, the ex-Man United player. Of course,
I love Danny Welbeck. He's a Rolls Royce of a footballer. He's absolutely
yeah, he's in the garage a lot, but yeah, he's a Rolls Royce.
Say, if the Rolls Royce had no wheels and a broken oil filter, then yeah, I suppose he's
we fixed him. He doesn't get injured that much anymore, apart from he's injured at the moment.
Apart from every couple of weeks, yeah.
What do you think the score's going to be, Addy?
I just think it might. We'll either win 5-0 or draw 0-0. I don't think we'll lose.
Yeah, I think Man United probably lose 3-0 on Saturday. I don't know why. I just think it'll be a gubbin. I don't think we'll get near you. I think there's so much going on outside the club right now that it's easy for the players to give it half arse and then blame the outside factors, and that's what Man United have done over the last little while. Like it's never, as Phil said, they don't apologise by performing on the pitch. They apologise on Twitter and stuff like that. And if they can get away with putting in a half-arse performance, getting hammered by Brighton, and then going, oh well, no worries, Callum. See you later.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna have to. Let's chat to you, lads. See you later.
See you next
week. One thing I would say is that we have one, and it is a bit of a worry, and Adam will probably agree with this, is the fact that this season we haven't actually come up against a decent midfield yet this season. And
we still won't this weekend.
Well, just
yes, you will.
Since losing the octopus in Moises and Alexis, we haven't really been tested through the middle. And I think a lot of clubs have actually. Luton were trying to go through the middle and see what our resilience is in there. So maybe I don't know if Belaber's going to get an opportunity straight away. I think it's probably too early for him. So we might see Dahoud in there possibly. The middle of the park could be a concern for us.
Well, Mateus Cunha made the Manchester United midfield look like it was a cheese grater. So he's injured though, isn't he?
Because Casemiro won't just be on an island with 4 players looking at him. Like Amrabat will sit beside him.
Who's playing centre back for you this game?
He is.
Could be me.
Phil, get the boots back on.
I'm on call.
Yeah. Is it genuinely going to be Maguire?
No.
I think Martinez is all right.
Martinez should be okay. He got. I think it was more
Lindelof's all right.
Him and Lindelof.
Lindelof. Yeah.
Right.
They've got Johnny Evans on the bench. It's fine.
But if Martinez is out, it has to be
Evans.
Johnny Evans.
Right.
Johnny Evans.
Tremendous.
It's not Maguire. Like this is the point.
Like, boys, it's time to go put my daughter to bed. So I will bid you adieu.
No worries at all, Eddie. We're just about to wrap up. Wrap up.
Cheers,
cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Cheers, Pam.
Reports today suggest terrific. So yeah, it looks like it's Lindelof and Maguire. No, it's not. It's Lindelof and Johnny Evans. Keane. It's not Lindelof and Maguire.
Watch this. We'll lose 4-0 now against you.
I'm gonna go 4-0. Yeah, not 3-0. I think 4-0. Oh, this is going to be horrible. Also, why is this game not on TV? Like, it should obviously I'm assuming every game's on TV for you.
Yeah, you're talking to someone. I'm sport for choice. I watch every game for about $10 a month, which is silly. You guys have like medieval TV rules. I do not miss them. I do not miss that. Yeah,
That's fair. Perfect. Well, so Phil's been the most optimistic with a 1-1 draw, but whatever you think the Man United.
Very optimistic.
Yeah, it's sad that that's the state of affairs that we're in. That's optimistic. But whatever you think the score is going to be, put it in the comments. That is going to finish the show for us tonight. Thank you very much, Adam and Phil. Is there anything you want to plug, Adam?
Nah, I just hopefully keep spreading the good word of Brighton. If we put in a decent performance on Saturday, I know you guys won't, but it's nice. It's nice to hear people be complimentary about the team and the club and the way it's run and all that kind of thing. Like it's better than the alternative. So yeah, it's always good to come on these things. So I appreciate it. Good luck for the rest of the season outside of this game, and then when you come and play us next.
Yeah, well, you're definitely everyone. As I say, you're definitely everyone's second club. I think it was a Man United journalist last season that said if you want to buy players correctly, go to Brighton and offer them money, wait for them 2 weeks or 3 weeks to reject it, and then look at who they're linked with to replace them and then go back. And that's the way to do
it's kind of what Chelsea have done. So they stole the recruitment team and they're starting to buy those players.
Chelsea given you 225 million in the last 12 months. They've really just bankrolled you for the next.
Yeah, it's a nice little
decade.
Pension. Yeah.
Perfect. That's brilliant, guys. Make sure you do what everyone watching, thank you very much. Make sure you do like and subscribe and stay tuned in to the Devil's Advocate. There'll be loads of shows tomorrow. Keane has an interview coming out that he did today with Rennie Mullenstein, ex-Manchester United assistant, which is fantastic. So make sure you guys do watch that. Other than that, guys, thanks very much and see you later.